Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is D back again with another movie review, and this time I'm going to be talking about the 2021 film The Matrix Resurrections. I'm going to try to make this a brief review. I literally just finished watching this movie probably about like a couple hours ago, super late to the party, watching this long after all of the masses have watched it, but I actually knew it was going to be like that because I was not really in a rush to check this movie out. Back when they initially announced that this movie was going to be made, I was not really excited about it. I knew I would get around to checking it out, but I was not particularly hyped about it. Then I saw one of the initial trailers. I think I did a reaction video to that, and it did have some kind of intriguing elements to it. My mind was a little bit more open to seeing what the movie would be about. And then the movie came out, and I started to read, non-spoiler reviews and see just some of the general thoughts people had about the film. And once again, my expectations were tempered, and I knew, okay, don't go into this expecting, when you finally do watch it, don't go into this expecting anything kind of mind-blowing, okay? So finally watched it earlier today, and just for kind of backstory, I am a fan of Matrix 1 and Matrix Reloaded. I did see Matrix Revolutions, but only thing I remember about it, and I actually saw it in theaters and whatnot, but I just remember not being, very happy with the movie, like not finding it very entertaining, just not really being satisfied at all with it, and just kind of one of those movies I kind of forgot about pretty soon after seeing it. It was so uneventful and so kind of unimpactful of a viewing experience. So, but Matrix 1 and Matrix 2, I am a relative fan of those films. So, Matrix Resurrections, not going to go into any kind of plot details. I'm simply going to go on about my initial takeaways after this viewing. What I thought about this movie, it pretty much was in line with what I thought it was going to be, which was that it would have moments that had promise, moments that would be entertaining, ideas that had promise, ideas that could be a little entertaining, some kind of intriguing elements, but also it wouldn't all come together in something that was totally satisfying, and that's pretty much what happened. The movie had some sequences, some moments that were entertaining, where I was like, okay, I'm gonna settle in for this ride. But then some of those same moments that kind of had promise, that promise wouldn't get fulfilled. There'd be action sequences that, like, what people are actually doing within the action sequence in terms of the choices characters are making within the action sequence are perfectly fine for the most part, but the sequence probably should have been shot differently, probably should have been kind of laid out a little bit differently. There's also a lot of what I call, during the action sequences, there's also something that I pretty much would call like lots of non-distinct activity, where there would be an action sequence, a lot of bodies and people are on screen or in the room, in the area where this sequence is taking place at, and everybody's doing something, everybody's moving in the shot. But when you really look at the shot, nobody's really doing anything. You can't make out any specific maneuvers that somebody's doing. There was a lot of sequences and shots where I was looking at the screen and a lot of people were moving, fighting supposedly, but when you really looked at them, a lot of them weren't really doing anything. And I guess, maybe the fact that so much was in slow motion, that might have affected that and made it kind of look like where maybe somebody, instead of clearly throwing a punch or whatever it may be, it might just kind of look like they're flailing. There was a lot of just kind of non-distinct flailing and whatnot. And I really like a very well shot, clear, kind of easy to follow, easy to tell where the logistics and where things are laid out at. I really like action sequences like that. And this is where this movie kind of dropped the bar, or one of the areas where this movie dropped the bar, is a lot of the action sequences had this non-distinct activity type look to them, where, okay, clearly a lot of stuff is going on, but nothing that really seems like I should be putting my attention on it. So it's like, yeah, technically lots of action, but if I can't understand any of it, then it might as well be no action at all. You know what I mean? It's kind of that situation. You know, a lot of action doesn't really mean anything if none of it is actually special and none of it actually has any sort of visual impact. It doesn't stand out in any sort of fashion. And that's kind of the case here with a lot of the action. There's a lot of sequences that could have been cool, could have had some promise, but just ultimately left me unsatisfied. This was just a weird kind of... This is what I will say about this film. I want to make sure I mention this. I started to look at this movie through the scope of like a fan fiction, and when I did that, it made the movie a lot easier to digest, because you got to take out the kind of... I never was just a diehard Matrix fan in the first place. I found the first two movies entertaining, you know, all that, the respect for what the first film did in terms of pop cultural impact and whatnot. But I was never a diehard like fan where I was kind of like emotionally attached to the storyline and the characters and whatnot. So not being a diehard fan made it a little easier for me to kind of view this as a fan film and be okay with viewing it as a fan fiction in a way, because it, you know, kind of, if you have to pretend the movie is something else to enjoy it, technically that's kind of a problem. You know, you shouldn't need to do that with the film. You know, the purpose of the film is to provide the escapism, not for you to have to provide escapism kind of from the film itself in a way by pretending it's something else. So, you know, I get how that might seem like a criticism, but really that is what allowed me to kind of be more at peace with the movie, is viewing it through the scope of a fan fiction, because that's really how it feels, how a lot of the different kind of set pieces and elements come across, because there's obviously a lot of kind of things that are very clearly Matrix, just in terms of the world, things that are happening in the world, terminology that is used, characters that are referred to, that are referenced and whatnot. So it's like very clearly this is meant to be a part of the Matrix franchise and that world. But then there's also this element that's like where the movie doesn't really look like any of the other Matrix films. The action isn't filmed anything like the other Matrix films. You know, the characters, Neo obviously looks clearly different, looks a lot like John Wick, and he's much older. And this is a thing too, I will point out. This was the first time where Keanu Reeves, his age actually finally came across. You know, even in the John Wick films, he clearly looks older than he did in like Point Break or Speed or the first Matrix. But the John Wick movies, you don't think old when you look at Keanu in those particular movies. In this Matrix Resurrections, this was the first time I saw Keanu and actually thought, yeah, he looks old. Like, he's finally, that age is starting to be visible. I think him getting everything shaved for that sequence and everything like that, I think that might have had something to do with it too, because all the beard is gone, all the hair on the head is gone, so the age in the face is more revealed at that point. So that might be part of it too. But he finally looked old in this movie. Like, there was a lot of Liam Neeson energy coming off of him in terms of looking like an older guy in this film. So it was a weird little it was a weird thing. The movie felt a lot like a fan fiction. I'm actually going to leave this review here, because I feel like I've already gone on much longer than I planned, and I could accidentally end up going even longer than this, so I'm just going to stop it here. What I will say, though, to just overall, and I'm not, like I said, not doing movie scores anymore. I always got to reiterate that. I do recommend this to fans of the franchise, because it is, you know, like it or not, it is a part of the franchise. It is an extension or a continuation of the characters and their stories. So I do recommend it, because it's an intriguing watch, particularly if you go in without these kind of lofty expectations. If you go in with lofty expectations, you know, you probably would be kind of disappointed. But there's also, there's also an angle you could look at this where this was like a, you know, might be maybe a refreshing film for some, depending on, you know, what you were looking for. And maybe if you really wanted a change of speed, a change of pace, and things like that. If you're somebody who found the Trinity Neo romance just very intriguing and very interesting, if that was a big part of why you enjoyed the Matrix films, this movie might be a little bit more entertaining for you. Me personally, throughout the whole Matrix franchise, I never was really invested in the Trinity Neo romance. That was always something that it was, for me, I felt like I just had to put up with in order to get to all the other things about the franchise that I enjoyed, mainly the action, the science fiction, the cyberpunk elements, all of that type of stuff, the fighting and whatnot, those type of things. The romance between Trinity and Neo was something that I just kind of like, for me personally, I just kind of had to put up with. Never was highly invested in it. And so, but if you're somebody who was highly invested in their romance, maybe you can find something more here to enjoy. But it's not the best. Like, I don't think I'll rewatch this anytime soon, if maybe at all. You know, like I tend to say, unless there's some sort of assignment where I have a project or a reason to rewatch this, I'm probably not going to, because it was an interesting initial first watch, but I needed that initial first watch in order to confirm whether or not I would ever give it another watch again. And I'm leaning more towards I probably won't, but it's worth a first initial watch. So that is it. I will leave the review there. Thank you for watching. As always, until the next time, I will catch you on the next go round.